Guten Morgen. Guten Morgen.
Good morning,
bonjour,
good
et
morning,
bienvenue
good
dans
morning.
cette
Welcome
neuvième édition de
to
Luxembourg
this
Sustainability
ninth
Forum, l'édition
edition
2020.
of the Luxembourg
Eh
Sustainability
bien,
Forum
quel chemin nous avons
2020.
fait depuis ces derniers
What a
mois
long
et
way
ces
we've
reports
put behind
successifs. Et nous sommes
ourselves
très
in the
heureux de vous
coronavirus, and
accueillir
really
aujourd'hui
happy to
pour
be
cette
able to welcome you
version
today for this
vraiment spéciale de
very
ce
special
Sustainability
version
Forum.
of the Sustainability
Version spéciale
Forum.
puisque
Very
vous ne le
special
voyez pas, mais
edition
je suis
because you
entouré
don't
par
see it
une
because I'm
myriade de techniciens.
surrounded by lots and
Nous
lots
avons
of
créé un
technicians here
véritable
on
plateau
this
télé pour vous
platform, a
accueillir aujourd'hui.
TV
Et
platform
cette
put together
version
for
ne
you
sera pas
today. And
une
this
simple
version
version en
will not
streaming
be simply a
avec des gens
streaming
qui viendront
version
de
with
loin.
people
Non,
coming
nous
from
serons
afar.
ensemble
No, we were
sur
going to
ce
be
plateau.
together here
Vous allez
on this
voir les différents
platform here. The
intervenants.
different
Ils vont
speakers
débattre
will
derrière moi.
appear
Vous allez voir les
here in a
différents
round
speakers.
table just
Vous pouvez
behind me. I
assister de
have
manière
other keynote
virtuelle
speakers,
à une exposition.
and you have a
Donc, une
virtual
journée
exhibition as
vraiment
well. So a
spéciale
very
de
full and
ce
special day
Sustainability Forum.
for this
Alors, non seulement vous
Sustainability
assistez
Forum.
sur la plateforme en streaming,
You have the
probablement vous
streaming
êtes là
platform.
aujourd'hui avec nous,
You're
mais
there
vous pouvez
with us
également suivre
today,
ce
but
forum
you
en
can
4
follow
langues
along in
et
4 languages
rediffusé
as
en
well.
direct
This is
sur rtl.lu
streamed
en
on
français, en luxembourgeois, en
RTL.lu,
anglais
French,
et en allemand.
Luxembourgish, English, and
Je vous
German.
signale qu'en dessous à droite de votre écran, vous
On the
pouvez changer
lower
la langue.
right-hand
Donc, si
side, you
vous vous
can
sentez
switch
plus à l'aise dans
languages.
une
If
autre
you
langue,
prefer
n'hésitez
another
pas.
language, please
Tout
don't
ça est traduit
hesitate.
en
We have
simultané.
a simultaneous
J'aimerais
translation
aussi vous
foreseen
signaler
for you.
que si
I'd
vous
like to
réagissez sur
indicate
les
as
réseaux
well that if
sociaux,
you
que ce
act on
soit
the social
LinkedIn ou
media,
Twitter,
LinkedIn
vous
or
avez
Twitter,
également la possibilité de
you
le
have the
faire.
possibility to
N'oubliez pas
do so.
d'ajouter
Please
le
don't
hashtag
forget to add
LSF
the hashtag
2020.
LSF 2020.
Vous avez également la
You also have the
possibilité
possibility
de nous parler, de
to
parler en
talk to
direct.
us
À
directly
droite de votre
here,
écran, vous
live.
voyez qu'il y a
You can
questions, donc
see
n'hésitez pas
questions
à
on
nous
the
poser des
right-hand side.
questions. Elles vont
Please don't
apparaître
hesitate to ask
en
questions. They
fonction
will
de
appear
directement sur
for
l'écran
us
devant
here
nous.
on
Nous
the
les verrons
screens, right in
immédiatement.
front of
Donc
us.
n'hésitez pas.
So in
Le
real
principe, c'est
time,
d'être
don't
interactif,
hesitate. We
donc
want to be interactive
travailler avec
today.
nous,
Work with
échanger,
us,
parfois ses idées. Et puis on sait,
get
nous savons
involved in
tous
the
que nous avons
exchange.
manqué
And
cruellement de contact
we
ces
are
derniers mois.
lacking
Donc vous
social
pouvez
context in the
également
last
parler aux
month, so you
participants.
can talk to
Donc non
participants
seulement
directly
dans
as
le
well.
bas d'écran, vous voyez
On the upper
participants,
right-hand
vous
side,
cliquez
you
sur
see
participants,
participants.
vous allez
Click
voir
on
les quelques
participants. You
centaines de
see the
personnes
hundreds of
qui sont là
people
avec nous,
taking
puisque nous
place in
avons
the
plus de
event.
600 inscrits
We
aujourd'hui.
have more than
Donc pas mal
600
de
people
streaming de
registered, and with the
contenus à
streaming,
gagner. Eh
probably
bien,
more than
vous regardez la
1,000
personne à qui
participants.
vous
So
avez
you
envie de
see
parler,
different
vous cliquez
persons.
sur
You can
rendez-vous
click on the
et la
name,
personne sait qu'elle veut vous parler.
ask
Vous
for
pouvez
a
également parler
rendezvous,
avec
for a
elle.
meeting,
Nous
and
avons mis des breaks,
you
nous
can
avons mis des
exchange. We have
pauses dans le programme
breaks
de manière à ce
foreseen
que vous puissiez profiter de ces
during the whole
moments pour
day to
justement
take
interagir
up the
avec
opportunity
nos
to
participants.
interact with all our
Vous avez
participants.
également
And you have
l'opportunité
also a
d'assister à une exposition
possibility
virtuelle
to
qui
visit
est
a virtual
passionnante, qui est
exhibition, really
d'infonicité, le regard des
excellent.
sciences
It's
cognitives.
talking about
Cette
cognitive
exposition a été
potential.
réalisée par
This has been put
l'Université
together with
Luxembourg,
IMS, Luxembourg,
Cogex,
Cogex,
Didask.
Didask.
Et en fait, nous avons
And actually,
préparé un
we've
parcours
prepared a whole
très original à
package,
travers
very
le
original
cerveau.
here.
Nous sommes
Through your brain.
bombardés d'informations en
We
ces
are
temps
bombarded with
spécifiquement Covid.
information,
Nous sommes
especially in
en
these
permanence
COVID times.
connectés. Nous
So
essayons
we
de
are
rester sur
connected
la
all the
direction
time. We
en
stay,
permanence.
we try at least to stay ahead of all the information. How does our brain really cope with all this overload of information? How can we have priorities here? A certain hygiene in the treatment of the topics as well. It's a passionate topic that you can visit here as well. And we will have an opportunity to talk about that during a roundtable discussion in a few minutes. So this Forum 2020 is obviously under a certain theme. We have three of them: people, planet, prosperity, and we've chosen the people part of it all. And COVID times, this seemed an obvious choice. And we have the impact on the social and solidarity-based economy. It's not a gadget. Social and solidarity-based economy has as many members of staff as an automotive industry in Europe, 14 million workers. 10% of the European GDP is certainly not a gadget, and there's a new economic model, rather, allowing us to connect economy, social matters, solidarity elements, to have our planet get back to a life, a healthy life, and this on an economic model as a basis. And how does it work better there than in classical types of companies? I should like to thank all people helping us to put this forum together. You can see I'm surrounded by lots of people, as I told you, and we have all our suppliers, our partners, and amongst our partners, I'd like to mention our sponsors as well. Sponsors allowing us to produce these events is really important. I want to cite them here. We have AG2R La Mondiale, European Investment Bank, BNP Paribas, Asset Management, PwC, and Société Générale. Thank you to these companies. Thank you for your support, especially in these very difficult times, allowing allowing us to be still with you and to try and reach as many people as possible. Particular thanks as well to the city of Luxembourg, because we are at the Grand Théâtre in the city of Luxembourg on their invitation. I should like to thank the city of Luxembourg and welcome the Alderman Maurice Bauer for a few introductory words. Maurice, you have the floor. Thank you, Christian, for this very kind introduction. Allow me to welcome you warmly in the Grand Théâtre in Luxembourg. Grand Théâtre, really a high-ranking place in the cultural life of Luxembourg, bringing people together from all horizons, people from all cultures. And I think this is an ideal place to reach all the people based on the topic you've chosen for today, dear Christian. And you just talked about people. A city like the city of Luxembourg has the human capital as its most capital. All people living here in this city. And this framework, the city is really happy to be able to host for several years now, be a partner of the IMS in organizing together all kinds of events and to show ourselves as a public authority, as a municipality, to see how we handle the topic you have chosen for today in such an important way. And I think the city of Luxembourg, the municipality, is a city putting people, humans, citizens of the city at the center of all our preoccupations. And in that sense, I think the city of Luxembourg has always been in a precursor role. Together with IMS, we have a very important partner here. We can see this with all the activities you've organized in 2019 already. Let me remind you of the Zero Single-Use Plastic Manifesto, allowing lots of companies to be aware of all the work that still has to be done, and the public authorities as well. As municipality, we are reflecting on this topic as well, obviously. And what's really important in my view as well, as an alderman responsible for social matters, is welcoming workers in the situation of handicap. You've mentioned that in your 2019 program as well, and we could advance in the companies, together with the companies, and in the public institutions as well. And in that sense, I think that the enormous work you're producing is of the utmost importance for us as a society. And school is resuming as well in Luxembourg. IMS has chosen to start its own chain of events as well. A very strong message here. It's up to us after this crisis period, COVID crisis, with lots of worries in the last month. It's high time to meet again, to talk to each other, and to be again in a dynamic role. And in that sense, your event is certainly the starting point for a whole series of events that will be coming up. And as a municipality, we are really happy about that. And I'd like to say as well that the city of Luxembourg is working on all these topics as well. Right now, we're finalizing the tram project. We are building the biggest park in the city. We are renaturizing the river crossing Luxembourg. We have a completely electronic system for handling the city bikes. Diversity has been brought up as, again, equal partnership between men and women as well, equal opportunities. And in that sense, IMS has been delivering triggers and fantastic projects of use for the city and other companies to launch the debate and leading the fight together for improvement in all these chapters. Let me tell you that the City of Luxembourg is really happy to be, again, a partner for IMS in this project, and we will continue to do so in the future. We'll be fighting alongside you, all your efforts, and I'm happy in the name of the municipality, Mrs. Mayor, and all workers and citizens of the city, wishing you the best of luck for this IMS Day and your project. I should like to thank Christian, Nancy, and your whole team for the enormous work you've been producing here. Good luck for your debates. It's going to be very interesting all day long with Emmanuel, Soulias, with Riyad Salem, or with all the other panel members. We're looking forward to hearing your debates, and we're really happy to be at your side again. Best of luck, Christian. Thank you very much, and have very good debates. Thank you very much, Alderman, for for your welcoming word. Thank you for that. You said so yourself. We're going to start without further ado, and I'd like to introduce our first guest, delivering the keynote speech before our first roundtable for a new type of entrepreneurship, the role of social and solidarity-based economy against social challenges. I would like to introduce Emmanuel Soulias, who has joined us here, CEO of Projet. A few words of introduction. For 20 years now, Emmanuel is working in the area of social and solidarity-based economy in different companies. Enercop, fourth supplier of electricity in France. All their electricity is 100% renewable, wind, solar, hydraulic biogas. He's responsible as well now for Projet. If you're a member of IMS, you might know about this because this happened in the sustainability market that has just been published. Projet is a social and solidarity-based economy company, objective being to help major company groups to regenerate growth and improve the supply chain. 10 million trees are cut down every day on this planet, and reforest these areas is a major project. This is generating revenues. You can reinvest these profits in new projects, and 40 projects of that kind in the world are run by this company to reforest areas. So regenerating ecosystems on the one hand, helping local communities to lead a better life, and help companies as well to generate or maintain their supply chain. So this is an ideal mixture, quite ambitious, original, and working very nicely, according to the latest news. Emmanuel, you have the floor. Thank you, dear Christian. Good morning to all of you. I'm really happy to participate in this debate and at this 2020 edition of the forum. So I warmly thank the IMS organizers for the opportunity to take the floor here to contribute to this exchange and to show you how Christian indicated already how the social company Projet is led. It's been built a little bit more than 10 years. Christophe Lecomte, who had created Altereco as well, with the idea to develop and promote fair trade products for broader customer bases. Christian is credited as the basic social entrepreneur. He's been regularly creating social businesses of all kinds. And Tristan has built this company about 10 years ago with the objective to have trees at the crossroads of solidarity-based social economic activity, to have in their value chain a magical solution being trees. And I'd like to give you an overview of the multiple aspects of this activity. This type of adventure creation project, nature-based solutions is the name. I mention this because this is the future as well. Integrate nature at the service of our transition, at the service of a better well-being in economic well-being and activity in the world. So the basic idea of Projet is to regenerate ecosystems that have been degraded. Tristan has mentioned managing the negative aspects for forests all over the world, and this is not at an end yet, leading to health crises, pandemics as well, and with the closer contact to zoonosis, and trees are supposed to be integrated in the supply chain of major companies, along on the one hand to improve their profitability, basing their activity on primary resources that I will mention as well, allowing as well to have living conditions, social conditions, economic basis in a more advantageous form for the local communities working on the basis of these resources, allowing as well companies to have a specific activity proactively, not outside its own business, but integrated within its own business model, all social, environmental, and economic aspects. Insetting, as you know, is offsetting as the dynamics, compensating these negative aspects or environmental problems, whereas the insetting is the idea to have a closer view within my own activity to see what I can do specifically and concretely to improve my social and economic performance linked to governance and environment as well. So Christian, you said so. Pure Project is a social economy. It was not the case at the beginning, but since 2016, Pure Project has the statute of a social economy. It's a Bicorp, you know, this network of companies with an added value for environmental aspects within its own business models. Really important for Pure Project to have this acted as well, for the simple reason that we are not solely trying to save the planet, trying to have climate, biodiversity, environmentally based aspects without taking into account a human aspect as well. We are one with nature. We are one amongst the companies, the consumers, the producers, the suppliers, and the social convergence, social well-being, better being has to be involved here as well when addressing environmental problems and with negative effects right now still, according to a lot of people. And that's why it was really important to have the environmental aspects integrated within the core business of our company. You know our initial observation here, a lot of deforestation, it's an agriculture rendering lots of services in the last decades for humans, but an agriculture that is now becoming too intensive with a lot of pesticides and a lot of monoculture and allowing to have a possibility to address the necessity to feed the world population, but it's not up to the climate problems right now. With heat records all over Europe, you could see that these climate problems are coming back again and again, are going to be more intense in the future as well. So nature is not resisting any longer to all these environmental aspects, heat, wind, erosion. Trees are to be reintegrated. Roger and as you have seen this as one of the most important resources to answer all the environmental challenges in the broadest sense, and climate and biodiversity aspect. Reforestation, trying to integrate trees again in monoculture, intensive agriculture, monoculture in lots of cases again, with a lot of advantages here. We've got to put together trees, the living shadow, better taking of water, especially underground water, against erosion as well, allowing to reintegrate biodiversity, to have more protection for pollinators with the proliferation of a whole series of chemical products and phytosanitary products. Trees are really important as well, allowing to have additional revenues for local populations with a local remuneration in order to cultivate and maintain all the elements integrated in the value chains of companies, being in the agroalimentary business, food business, agro-food, cosmetics, and other areas as well, all of them based on raw materials of plant type. What we can see as well is that agroecology is based on certain practical methods with experiments as well, but the principle of agro-food business is answering not only social and environmental aspects, but economic aspects as well. In coffee monocultures, for instance, adding trees, there's more resilience to climate change effects, additional revenues as well, and integrating trees in existing businesses in order to cover environmental needs. We can observe that this has an impact on the economic activities as well, on profitability and on the health and solidity of the companies taking up these methods. Our economic model is quite simple. We have part of consulting activity, discussing with companies involved. Pure Projet is doing a lot of B2B today. Our objective is to bring together the big companies and nature in the quality of the projects, assisting them in the implementation as a consultant. Some of these companies are disconnected from nature, and nature is suffering needing more attention, more measures and reasonable approaches in handling the link here. So we helped them to have a diagnosis of their situation with different types of services, showing the first indications of the problem areas, and then agroforestation activities in the context of certain companies, be it cocoa, be it coffee, or the composition of perfumes in the cosmetics area, or other comfort products, roses, for instance, roses being cultivated quite intensively with a lot of phytosanitary products and degraded social conditions as well in certain countries. Introducing trees again, the global reflection here allows as well to have a more resilient and sustainable approach in the supply chain, and the supply chain is able to answer social and environmental matters as well. And at the end of the project, we want to measure the specific impact we've had in this agroforestry and insetting approaches in order to communicate with the company to have their return on investment put specifically as well after investments into trees. It's a virtuous circle, of course, because companies taking up these types of projects are acting specifically. They want to take up social and environmental aspects. They want to improve the global efficiency of their supply chain, improve especially the economic part, but also in answering the matters for the local communities working for their supply chain at the other side of the planet. Due diligence here or extended social responsibility for companies take into account the whole supply chain and not only directly the link with the consumers. So more committed companies and a strong involvement here with a better social and environmental situation for the local producing communities as well, allowing to answer strong expectations from the consumers as well. As you know, our consumers, our citizens are quite aware of these aspects and are really worried seeing the quick changes in the climate and the biodiversity like it's taking place right now. So this is a really important matter for companies to answer that as well. So it's a virtuous circle, working people, companies, suppliers and consumers as well, so all of them together. So we have a lot of methodological approaches here and reference works from the UN side, more particularly, to have the monitoring and reporting being done in an adequate way in all our social and environmental activities. It's a really ambition to be quite rigorous in this approach, which is important because companies want to invest, but they want to be able to measure their return as well. I talk about the effects of trees in all these different areas. As you can see on the slide, trees are probably one of the best investments at all on our planet because you can have an added value economically and environmentally speaking, as I mentioned, biodiversity, livelihood, answering all climate challenges and all kinds of other problems. So this is a magical investment right now, and I will invite you to get a more profound and in-depth overview here in your magazine you have mentioned as well. Right now, after 10 years, we have 16 million trees being planted. It's a lot and not much at all. So 10 million trees are disappearing every day nowadays, so we have to increase our impact. Hundreds of pure projects have to show up, growing and extending. 150 companies working with us right now in agro-food businesses, cosmetics and others, more than 43,000 agriculturists, 100 people involved in project leading as well, and all kinds of applications, as you can see. In Latin America, we are integrated in Africa, Southeast Asia, but there's a willingness to get a stronger foothold in Europe as well in order to answer matters of short-circuit delivery and environmental aspects, limiting all kinds of negative impacts on the environment. I should like to end with a 3-minute video showing you a specific illustration of what additional benefits can be generated by projects. We'll be talking about coffee. We'll be talking about two companies accompanying us here. We're really happy to work with Nespresso Bonello and the Louis Dreyfus Foundation. So I should like to end with this little video, saying more than 1,000 words, as they say, and I hope that this will indicate a little bit more clearly what I just tried to explain to you. Thank you.
In Ethiopia because of the climate change. The warming is starting, the dry season is to stay for a long time, the rain become irregular and it affects the farmers' everyday life. My name is Yaswa Tisu. I'm project coordinator in Ethiopia for Projet. We are working here in Sidama project with more than 5,000 farmers. It's very important to have technicians who comes from this community because they know about the language, they know about the culture. Since 2015, we planted 492,000 trees with 4 cooperatives. To distribute the trees for the farmers, the tree nursery should prepare within 6 months these seedlings. We train the farmers on planting techniques, how to prepare the hole, how to maintain the spacing between tree and the coffee. We planted trees on degraded side on the rock or mountain, and naturally many bush are regenerated. Many things, many life, biodiversity also enhanced in this area, in this environment. We started the cook stove project because the main challenge with tree in this area is firewood. One day we lead these farmers that they share this knowledge among them. I feel I'm saving the coffee.
Bien, merci beaucoup, Emmanuel. Je pense que
Thank you, Emmanuel. This film is very clear. We see that social and solidarity companies are not a gadget. They have a real impact. What strikes us is to see these people on the ground, see that we have an impact on health, on their well-being at the local level, helping them to live, while at the same time helping societies here to do their job, but differently, by offering value, by offering a meaning, and by respecting nature. I think that's very important. I was going to say that when I see this little movie, this little clip, you are ready, but are we? That's one of the real questions. There are solutions, but are we, entrepreneurs, ready today to embrace the topic? Are we ready to take the first step and not to reduce the bottom line, because many people think that investing with people like you means that you spend money, but probably means operate differently, to become more resilient, to respect the environment, to enable people to have a better livelihood. It's a real question. Are we ready? So on that topic, we can move on to our roundtable, which I invite you to join, Emmanuel, for the debate, which is going to start on doing it differently, the role of the solidarity and social economy confronted with big societal challenges. There are many today. You can ask your questions online on the right-hand side of your screen. You can interact with us. Don't hesitate, as I was saying. I already see there are some questions coming in on our screen here that we can see. And without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Nancy Thomas, the director of IMS Luxembourg. Nancy, you have the floor. Christian, as you've just said, are we ready to take up the challenge of the solidarity and social economy and have an interesting debate with a number of speakers? But before we go into the topic, I would like to come back to the definition of what we are going to talk about, the social and solidarity economy. What is it? The social and solidarity economy is entrepreneurs, first and foremost, people leading an organization. So we talk about the economy, a company that wants to make a profit, but the governments will be different, more autonomous, because the workers will have a different role to play in these organizations. The profits will be reinvested in the projects of the organization, so no dividends will be paid in a more capitalistic model, and the organization is going to respond to societal challenges, whether through its projects or through its workers or wage earners that will integrate these structures. So it has a different aim, a different objective, and it's going to respond to societal challenges. I would also like to establish a link with a study that we produced in IMS, together with the Ministry of the Employment and Solidarity and Social Economy in Luxembourg. And in this study, we identified the challenges, the national challenges in Luxembourg that we should all pick up. We as private organizations or as private citizens or as entrepreneurs. And via these challenges, we identified about a dozen of them. This study is available on our internet site, so I invite you to have a look at it. If you want to start a company, if in your private company you want to develop new activities, I think we have covered a lot of scope on our territory, what things we can do here in Luxembourg. Accessibility to housing. Many things need to be done. The society is aging. Here again, activities can be developed, and waste management. For instance, this format, this organizational format, in terms of the current crisis, and Christian mentioned this, as a new model, new business models we should look into, and this is what we're going to see with our four speakers here today. Three are physically here in the studio, and one person is there virtually. We're going to introduce them in a second. We would like to cover various forms of cooperations with the actors of the solidarity and social economy, and what are the concrete actions that can be put into place on this territory here in Luxembourg and beyond our borders. Emmanuel, I'm going to give you the floor right away, but one of the first forms that you have mentioned is social entrepreneurs, a person deciding right from the start to set up a social company. Can you explain how Pure Project integrated these principles right from the start? Yes, with pleasure. It's not right from the start, really. It came about after a long reflection that I mentioned earlier on, saying we have a social objective which is focused on the environment, giving answers to needs, protecting the environment, adapting to climate change, promoting biodiversity. So the reflection came progressively, and we told ourselves this social dimension is convergent, and it's important to respond to these challenges. The social economy and the solidarity economy is not always the result of a social entrepreneur or of a dynamics of social entrepreneurship. We have various stakeholders who would like to respond to social environmental challenges, and we can decide to set up a cooperative, an association, a movement, maybe perhaps something that doesn't have a legal form, but we tell each other we're going to work on this topic together, fixing ourselves governance rules, decision-making rules, participative decision-making, how profits will be attributed, what is the profit there for, only to remunerate a shareholder, a return on investment, a classic thing, like in the capitalist economy, or do we want to use this profit for innovation, for the general interest, and for many other things? This is just a nuance I wanted to make, because between social entrepreneurs, social and solidarity economy, and corporate social responsibility, what we're trying to determine, and I think you will say so very clearly, is that there are some fundamental trends that can take different forms and shapes because they are either promoted by an individual, by a collective, or by a company, an established company that finds it needs to move ahead its economic model, realizing that its economic model is no longer in line with social environmental changes, and is going to think how this social dimension can be integrated, the societal dimension, solidarity can be integrated in its company. Very good transition. Benjamin Cavalli, you are currently the head of the Programme Malignant Association, and your aim is to help families in difficulties from 0 to 3 years old and their families. These projects are done in cooperation. This is a very good example. Could you explain how this association came about and the project, what the project is doing? First, hello, Nancy, and thank you, IMS2, for bringing us here physically on this podium. It's very pleasant in this context. So the Malignant program, the SMART program, is first three findings. As you said, young children, we work on young children 0 to 3 years old. First, because it's something about public health. It's important to build the health of a person, and the arrival of a child is an opportunity to talk about nutrition. Nutrition plays a very important role in health and developing your DNA. The second finding is that these topics, for people who have a low budget, like for all parents, they need to find out what do we need to give our child to eat and when. These are very specific issues, and we would like to offer practical, very practical advice for these families. And the second important point is that you cannot simply stop with ideal nutrition. You also need to give the people a budget, families a budget to buy quality products. Some studies were published this week saying that this is a real obstacle to access to quality food. So the profile of the families is very important. We can come back to precariousness later on. Today, the public organizations focus mainly on very precarious populations. So curing poverty. Because of the fragilization of our society today and of the middle classes, we also need to do some prevention. And the people we reach out to are people that are below the poverty line, 70% of them, but just below the poverty line, so people still have a job, badly paid job, precarious jobs, and they have budget problems at the end of the month or even in the middle of the month. And then we have population just above the poverty line who are also confronted with these budgetary constraints, and these constraints means that they have to choose between products, quality products or not. And what we offer is complementary to what already exists and is very complementary with food help in targeting the population. To come back to the last point, to what Emmanuel was saying, his last point, the question was, once we found these results, there was a collective awareness among us. I'm a former worker for the Red Cross, and we said ourselves there are relations between associations and the state and companies, and there's a collective dimension that is not present enough. That was under the aegis of Martin Hirsch, who was the Commissioner for Solidarity. We took all the stakeholders around the table, people from the health sector, pediatrics, scientists, associations, and companies, so that we can cross our expertise and our views. And we spent a lot of time, 2 years, to build the project, to build the whole approach. Now, the second form that we would like to mention today around this roundtable is a private company, Suez, which develops partnerships or joint ventures or even entrepreneurship around these matters. Benoît, Bonello, you are the head of innovation, social innovation at Suez France, the inclusive company and relations with social entrepreneurs to develop new offers with a social impact. You also coordinate the subsidiaries of Suez and entrepreneurship programs. Can you tell us why a company like Suez is interested in social entrepreneurship and what form it took in your company, these partnerships and establishing links with these partners? Yes, of course. Suez, just to remind you, is a big environmental company in France. 90,000 workers are in the world, 30,000 in France. Waste management we do, and water management. Two major fields of activity and two big customers, collectivities and companies. So Suez is an important partner for insertion or integration for a long time, because what we do is very close to this. We in the waste management sector, these jobs are accessible with little skills, little qualification, not easy to transfer abroad. We have many markets where we have some social clauses. Municipalities, when they give us an order, they want a social chapter to facilitate inclusion and integration. Suez has historically been very much involved in these topics. In 2003, we set up a subsidiary. It's called Rebond Insertion, and since 2003, this company has made it possible to bring more than 5,000 people back into employment through activities, waste sorting, interim activities, and other projects. I've been working for Suez for 8 years on these topics, social innovation, and beyond the fact that our customers are asking us, and since we're doing this already, there are also 3 other reasons that push a company like Suez to get closer, to get inspiration, to work with social entrepreneurs. The first one is that our main issue is environmental transition. And we realize that this environmental transition cannot be achieved if the most fragile populations are not included. So companies that want to work on environmental transition need to offer some answers for the fragile public, for people who are at the margin of society. And the second reason is that the solutions, if you want to have zero waste in Luxembourg tomorrow, technology, smart solutions will not be enough. We need to work in alliances with other actors, with people in the social and solidarity economy, who is going to complement the offer of Suez and for whom Suez can have a leverage effect. Re-employment, recycling, that can have some very clear links with our waste management at Suez, changing behaviors of consumers, and I'm thinking of many partners, many topics that are compatible. And the last reason is the world is also changing, the world of the social and solidarity economy. For 10 years ago, in the past 10 years, the borders have become fuzzier between the world of companies and the world of the social entrepreneurs. And this is where innovation will become from tomorrow. Benjamin, can you explain the partnerships that you have built in the Malin program with private companies? Because we have the other side here, which makes it possible to better understand how these partnerships are established and this cohesion between private actors and associations. I see that this is a question that was asked. What are the format of your activities? Now, the starting point is very important. Two starting points, actually. Very often we say big companies, precarious people, they never touch these topics, are separated, but that's not the case at all. On nutrition, for instance, there are people who are in difficulties to get some food help. Others go to the supermarket and buy products. So when you scan these topics, you find that some people will go onto the market in the broad sense of the word, buy products and buy services, essential services and products. There's a double pain. The poorer you are, the higher you will pay for access and for products. That's a very important starting point. It means there was a real interest when we started the whole program to move the lines of these businesses. So instead of being a problem, it can be a solution. So in the link with the company, we're not going to look at for financing only, we're also going to look for expertise and products so we can change them and make them accessible, affordable for these populations. So in our partnership, we try to establish an impact, and when we work with companies, it's milk for young children, accessible for these populations in normal distribution circuits, with vouchers in the supermarkets, for instance. And there we are connected with the core of the core business of the company. And inversely, what we offer the company, that's also a fundamental point, we can no longer rely on a philanthropic logic. We do have a philanthropic logic. We have a hybrid economic model. We can support the impact and make donations, but we also offer a number of services, businesses that offer real added value. Let me give you one example. The commitment of brands. We can connect to the brands of our partners in Malin and work on marketing where we really offer added value. Another example, we also work on the employers' brands, and we connect Malin with workers who come and help us concretely. And here again, this will make the company more attractive for the younger public and make the customers more loyal. Very important point. So it's a win-win situation. So the third form I wanted to mention today is the financial sector. Since the financial sector can financially support organizations and needs to do so, like every organization that wants to develop its activities. So we welcome here today Marie-Geneviève Carreiras, who is in charge of solidarity investments at BNP Paribas Asset Management, who is here virtually with us today. Marie-Geneviève, since 2003, you have been accompanying the growth of solidarity funds by BNP Paribas. You have developed a strategy to identify and analyze and recommend opportunities for investments in solidarity companies in France. Marie-Geneviève, can you tell us how you contributed to building a methodology to analyze and measure the social impact, to identify the projects that BNP can support, and why the bank is so much interested in these organizations? Yes, hello everybody. Thank you very much for welcoming me. Also, if it's only virtually, would be pleased to be there, but I hope I can contribute to the debate here today. Well, the first question, why are we doing these investments in social economy and solidarity economy as a big banking group like BNP Paribas? It echoes what Emmanuel was saying at the beginning. The question is, how in our core business do we integrate this question of responsibility and impact? BNP Paribas Asset Management invests the money of savers and institutions and companies, and we also want to do so by having an impact by contributing to projects of the social and solidarity economy. It comes back to our core business, how we transform it for a more positive impact. Also, I would also like to come back what Benjamin has just said, these hybrid models just emerging, and we will see actors that who part of their activity or all of their activity will be based on an economic model, which will benefit from investments and getting out of a help relationship and going to an investment relationship. And we can come in there. And then there is the saver, the investor, who is asking himself, where does my money go? How does it contribute? To what does it contribute? How can I achieve an impact? So we transform our core business to respond to these savers and investors, and we invest in companies which have a strong social impact in France, which means that we need to work differently. We need to work differently. That means we need to have adjusted financial instruments. We need to have the focus on our impact objective and not so much on return. But we also need to have analysis tools that need to be adapted. And when I say to my saver, I'm going to privilege social impact, how can I, as an analyst, make sure that I'm doing my work properly? And this is why we very early, at a very early stage, we needed to formalize our analysis and better understand the social mission of the projects we found, and also be accountable on the social impact to our savers in a reporting that will no longer be purely financial, but also talk about the projects and what they contribute, what their impact is. So therefore, we developed a methodology in partnership with Kimso and Group BNP Paribas since 2015, which makes it possible to have better tools in all the analysis of our projects, and the due diligence as an investor. A whole part will be to understand the social mission and the impact of these projects. We're going to ask a whole raft of questions to understand, to measure, sometimes to measure, but that's not the primary objective. But first, we want to understand what the association of the company wants to achieve around three key questions. First, who are the beneficiaries? Because that's where we can differentiate between a social company and a classic company, the fragility of its customers or beneficiaries or workers. So first, understand the beneficiaries. The action focuses on what other products and services that will be proposed to respond to this fragility. And finally, what change can we achieve with these publics, and how can we try to make sure that the project and these changes will succeed? And how can we pilot the whole thing? So that's a tool we try to create. And first and foremost, it's an analysis tool, asking questions, having an exchange, so that we can determine some impact indicators once the investment is done, some result indicators, so that we can be accountable towards the saver, saying, we finance 27 association companies, so and so many people have found a job, so and so many people got social housing at a low cost, and help so and so many products, organic and fair products put on the market, so that we are accountable and tell the savers what they have contributed to. I have a direct question that I can add to the presentation, Marie-Geneviève. This activity, is it purely in France, or does it also cover other European countries, like Luxembourg, for instance? Unfortunately, today we are specifically in France. It's the 80-10-90 fund. It's specific to France for the large public in France, and we also have a wage-saving mechanism that is being proposed to workers in companies that was strengthened by legislation to make it possible to make a solidarity fund compulsory. So there is regulation in France promoting this, and the possibility in the regulation to have investments, risk investments for the large public. This is what makes its development possible in France. It's fairly unique. We try to develop it outside France because we find that the mechanism is remarkable for two reasons. First, it allows everybody to invest in these projects, even if it's not listed on the stock exchange. But then we're also in a niche, a fund, which makes it possible to privilege the social impact and not so much the return, because 90% of the fund will remain investment in the classical markets and will give the saver the return for his investment and the risks he wants to take with bonds or shares, and the 5 to 10% that are invested in this on the solidarity side and the social side will have a strong social impact, knowing that the return will be lower, which means that the financing is less costly and has a small impact on the remuneration of the investment, on the return of the investment. So it's very interesting, and we hope we can develop it outside France soon. Thank you. Coming back to the idea of responding to societal challenges. I mentioned this in the study here in Luxembourg, and I would also like to give you the floor on this question, because we find that this form of the economy, the social and solidarity economy, is a huge opportunity to respond to territorial problems here in Luxembourg, and each of you in your projects respond to a number of challenges that you noticed in your projects. Emmanuel, the challenge that Pure Project is responding to is the regeneration of the ecosystems. Could you tell us a bit more about this? How do you respond to this challenge across the project? Yes, absolutely. Which makes it also possible for me to answer the other question. I talked about 10 million trees a year. It's 10 million trees a day, which raises the question of the impact in general, the solutions we can find. So it's 10 million trees a day. So the objective of Pure Projet is to offer concrete answers with a real economic stability. This deforestation dynamics and living beings that disappear all across the planet. As I'm saying, this is particularly serious in the current period because things are moving ahead quickly. You will have heard that we are in successive episodes of heat waves in Europe and across the world, and this linked to devastating practice in deforestation jeopardizes the forest itself, because the forest is can no longer capture carbon, and this can create non-virtuous circles. So our idea is to offer concrete technical solutions, but we cannot do that alone. We can only do that if some big companies contribute in some way or other to agricultural practice, existing agricultural practice. They need to realize that they need to change their way of operating, their relations with their providers and their workers, and with the cooperatives of farmers across the world who produce this raw material. And we are trying to answer that problem in this via the social economy, via social innovation. So the question is, how can all the stakeholders around the table, around the topic that finds a broad consensus, can find a solution? So we offer projects. We are a bridge between these actors, and try to contribute to bringing the fundamental economic interests of a company together with the interests of the planet and the populations, the local populations, the societal interests in general. So that's the idea. That's our role, and this is the role of a social company. And to answer another question that was asked, Pure Projet is a company today. We have a turnover of 17 million euros. We have positive results until now, despite this complicated period. But it makes sense. It makes business sense also to respond to these challenges in a classic configuration that will be open to partners, big companies, and partners on the ground. Thank you. Benoît, the problem that Suez is responding to is waste management. Could you tell us how this response is being developed in the various projects that you support, since we were talking about social innovation. I can take one or two examples. Very concretely, if you take waste, food waste, we know that 1/3 of the food production is wasted, and that's a real problem. And Suez, for instance, collects the waste from supermarkets, and we have a project in the incubator in the region of Bordeaux called SAISOF, and that we have incubated. We developed this project, and this became the anti-waste offer of Suez with the supermarket in the southwest of France. This project, SAISOF, is a plant today, a factory, consists in collecting non-sold fruit and vegetables from our supermarkets, our customers, and from the farmers in the territory, transform them into cooked dishes by employing people in difficulty, and sell them in the same supermarkets under the brand SAISOF. So Suez is doing the logistics, commercial development, because when we sell the solution to the supermarkets, we offer the solution to them, SAISOF, down to the selling of the finished products, and it's an argument for the differentiation with our customers and the beginning of a changing model towards a circular economy. This is a very concrete example which has an impact, a social impact, environmental impact, of course, and carbon, because everything that is being wasted is one of the main sources of greenhouse gas emissions in the world. So this is something that we try to develop and duplicate, and there can be very concrete synergies, and solutions can be found together with social entrepreneurs. Another example is Ecomego, where we incubated a social economy company that collects cigarette butts, and it's integrated in all cities where Suez is doing the waste management. And just another example, in Bordeaux, where Suez associated itself with three companies, Ecomego, three social companies, Ecomego collecting cigarette butts and creating awareness with the aim of have a zero-butt city. Then another company that collects the cardboard boxes from shops in the center. And then Tapage, which is an association that offers young people on the streets, many often addicted, to work on an hourly tariff to get an integration, and they do the weeding of the streets in the city. That's the type of projects, of markets that we are responding to in association to have a maximum social and environmental impact. So in partnership with many other organizations.
Marie-Geneviève and Benjamin, I wanted to give you an opportunity to direct as well in your fight against precarity, because the program Malin is answering the problem already. And Marie-Geneviève, I think there's a lot of projects in that sense. Can you react already, Marie-Geneviève? Yes, certainly. The vocation of solidarity funds is a thread leading through all these elements. It's fragilization of society, precariousness, and we wanted to react. So precariousness linked, for instance, to professional careers, education careers that have been disrupted, not allowing to have any kind of vocational professional insertion in a stable way. So we wanted to invest in reinsertion companies. One example well known by the ID Group as well. ID Group in Burgundy region has been active for 30 years now and allowing to have integrated into companies people not having the right skill set or approaches, and to give an opportunity to find a job again. Social insertion, this includes, of course, housing as well. Another project in the housing area is a matter of very social housing in France, not only to have an emphasis put on the social aspect of it all, but mostly directed to people with a very low wage level and to help them for housing, but professionally as well, to have an analysis of their problems, good neighborhood projects in the sense of housing as a tool for social reinsertion as well, reintegration, give them self-confidence and to be able to live within society again. And there are more innovative projects. The last example in this is concerning precariousness linked to handicap or to dependency. We have created Ciel Bleu, Blue Sky, for almost 30 years involved in physical activity as a lever, very important against all kinds of dependency for people to have an involvement for older people as well in social care areas, a little bit more autonomy and well-being in their daily lives, or persons with a special handicap as well. The exhalation of dependence being here confronted with a no medication approach of social support. So fight against precariousness, well, investments cannot do it all. When you talk about high levels of precariousness, it's not only a matter of profitability, of course. There's an additional element to subsidies, to partnerships. As mentioned in the roundtable already here, we cannot always motivate it, but we have when we have economic models, this can help. Investments can be a growth aspect here, and we have to certainly develop this as well. Benjamin, in the fight against precariousness as well. But before answering this question, I want to take up several elements mentioned beforehand. I think today's topic is certainly leading to an observation that we have consensus-based approach, that we have a crisis in the social and environmental aspect, that the SSE are good, 10% already, quite good. But today we have to say as well, it's quite interesting to have BNP here involved as well. It's not about counting on SSE to be able to confront these topics. It's a real topic of acceleration as well, speeding up the approach. We had an occasion to show the complexity of matters we're being confronted with. Philanthropy has to be a logical approach, but investments as well. And the topic today is how can we have 50% of economic activity in Europe with a very positive impact on society as a whole. And in the area of precariousness, to come back to the initial question, of course, this is important as well. Quite concretely, I said already, our topic is that we cannot only choose the curative approach, waiting for people to drop off into a very precarious situation before we intervene. There's a necessity to be preventive in the approach as well. So to act up front, and specific questions are needed for it. We cannot wait that people are arriving at the Resto du Cœur or the Red Cross before we intervene. So first intervention area for Malin is to identify families with a certain potential here and how have them integrated in projects up front. We have with the social support institution, public authority helping parents, for instance, with the help tools based with a database to have a situation where they say, you are parents, we want to help you in supporting your children. This is a matter for all parents, but those having budgetary restrictions, they can register here and have a more budgetary approach for them. But we have the complementary approaches as well concerning precariousness. So in these population areas, not in total precariousness yet, but still fragilized already, we have to have a specific system or tool for poverty threatened persons or families. It's not about splitting society into two or increase the inequalities, but if we can involve programs in the program, wanting them to register here. We need a combination up front based on their specific needs, get away from the institutionalized approach, which is a put-off element for them. And so we have chosen the digital proposals of Malin for everyone, so support for their shopping in supermarkets online and elsewhere. Last question, maybe in the remaining time, concerning the measuring the impact. We're talking about different projects here. And I think the companies in Luxembourg are not really completely interested in these new business models, so not getting involved yet. And the question here is, how can we measure this? How can we specifically see what the impact will be? Benoît, you are rather on the side of companies. How do you work at Suez, for instance? I'd like to answer that, but I want to get back to elements mentioned by Benjamin. Right, now we have an urgent situation. We've had 10 years until now to change our models. Companies in Luxembourg should not be waiting. We have to cooperate with the social sector companies, but there's possible approaches already today. How can we develop them on a larger scale? So as a company leader, I have to wonder what solution or what is my experience that might be brought up to handle the challenge we see in society right now, and how can I take up this really existing topic already to get involved? And then I'd like to launch a call to the workers as well. Workers are citizens as well. It's not only about being committed in the weekend and take your bicycle and go shopping for organic food, but on Monday get back to the old habits. No, you have to internally develop this activity all week long and show your satisfaction as well when your company leaders choose solutions in favor of the environment and society as a whole. And impact is a really essential topic of strategic importance even now already, and more actors have to get involved here. I think it's important to identify a few elements of impact that are really simple to understand. We have done different tests, so social return on investment is being brought up as a characteristic. So nowadays, when we launch a call for proposals, if we have €1, £1 or $1 invested in our solution on the food waste management market of Manchester, so £3 are given back to society with this approach. And this is really a very clear element. So if we invest €1 and €3 are the return on investment, this is really talking to people. And this has to be an integral part of new modes of calculation and of understanding as well what's being represented here. If we simply calculate as you're being used to, so there will be no real return development. So how can you have more visibility for these concrete results as you just described? So a lot of companies are not basing their business model yet on such an approach. And on the side of the SSEs, this was really positive. It's not only because you have a good idea that in reality we will have an impact immediately. So the matter of upcoming matters like impact evaluation certainly has been bringing up the visibility and to have a renewed approach chosen here. It's rather complex. Not immediately after starting, you will not be able to calculate everything and measure it all. You have to good methodological approach and a good timing as well. So impact study is like a clinical study. It's a kind of a Rolls-Royce, if you like. It's a scientific premiere on a European level. In 2025, there will be specific results for the first time. So based on a completely new methodology. So you have to choose this methodological approach, get started, and in due time you will be able to measure this. Emmanuel, concerning the impact, well, this is a very complex topic indeed. I said so beforehand in our project, Projet. We are investing a lot here and are quite attentive to the measurement aspect and the reporting for all the eco benefits of the project, biodiversity, climate issues, social issues, and other types of issues as well. This is really important to be able to measure them, to have this done in reporting as well, and a reference set talking to companies and the community at large. So this could be references for certification, for instance, or sustainable development goals of the UN. So this is really important to get this in a new package. And then there's a matter of complexity as well. If you have an initial situation with a return on investment which is really visible and readable at the lower part of your balance sheet, and you have to introduce new investment measurement factors not directly nourishing these basic values. This has to be indicated. There has to be an impact study showing all other benefits as well, also the social and environmental aspect, pushing people to invest more broadly. And here we're getting into the complexity, of course. And all stakeholders here, the state, ourselves, the citizens, choosing a certain societal, political, and economic model, so we can give more sense to such an approach as well. It's not always easy to describe this when you talk to business people, but the fiscal aspects, the fiscal tool supporting environmental and social approaches has to be deepened as well as a possibility. As consumers, for instance, it would be no problem for me that a VAT of 2 or 0% would be applied on a product reacting to social and environmental problems, whereas another product might be more profitable for certain investors, would have then 20, 30, or even more as a VAT rate applied. This is the complexity that has to be modulated. So we have to get a closer connection between the economic world and the world of consumers and citizens, also via their political expression and other contributors all over the world being involved here. Marie-Geneviève, maybe the impact measurement as a topic for you. You're in excellent position to describe this. Well, good position indeed. I think that impact measurement is an essential part of the whole approach. It's an essential part because you have to show evidence, not only talk about it. We have converging interests here between the political class, the investors, and our customers as well, the savers. So impact measurement involves the need to also be willing to take up the cost, so give up part of your return, possibly, for a social objectives, like Benjamin said. This might take some time, but you still have to act waiting for a complete adoption. So maybe it's not perfect or not complete as a solution yet, but allowing you still to react quickly, because we have to act now and not simply base your approach on existing methods. So this is an iterative approach, so learning by doing. We are happy to have our customers, the savers as well, 29,000 people accompanied to unemployment thanks to these measures, more than 50% of which with a very long-lasting impact employment-wise. This leads to first measures, first positive results, allowing us to have an impact measurement more and more positive in the course of time as well, but linked to common reference works, allowing us to talk about the same things with methodologies that are really transparent and progressively being adapted to this common approach. So allowing us to talk in the same nomenclature about identical aspects of this new approach. I think the time is running. Maybe one question still on the live screen here concerning the initiative Suez in France. Do you have a market study indicating particular interest of this proposal with a social value for consumers? Do you have documents that we could make available? We have a website for Suez project. alive and healthy. So we have 2 years of experience now with the project. We have customers of Suez, supermarkets more particularly. There we had a very positive reaction here. We could add more customers to our group, and then products being ready-made meals produced by Saint-Sauf are selling quite nicely in supermarkets as well. Saint-Sauf is now suffering from the COVID crisis for other problems, present organizational aspects, of course, yeah. But the experience of the project has been validated locally amongst the customers as well, because there's an awareness trying to have an impact in your shopping behavior as well. So this leads us to the end of this roundtable discussion. I should like to thank all 4 of you for this very rich and detailed contributions. We cannot cover all topics in detail, but I'd like simply say that we've brought up this topic today on our agenda here at the forum and wanted really to support the debate here as that there's a particular interest to do so. We have cooperative approaches here that have to be activated. We have a study being done by us, allowing us to identify projects and topics, and IMS remains as an incubator as well for co-creation projects, bring actors together, public stakeholders, private stakeholders, associations and institutions as well. So don't hesitate to submit proposals to us, and possibly we can activate our inspirational force and support an entrepreneurial dynamics here as well. Thank you very much, and enjoy the rest of our activities here and the debates. Thank you.